welcome. This is our very first episode of a segment that I put together. I'm David Hayes, owner of Hayes Firearms Academy. Y'all already know me. But this is our very first episode of a segment that I put together called The Other Side of the Gun. And basically, The Other Side of the Gun is a segment that I wanted to do to bring different perspectives, because oftentimes in the 2A world, we only hear the pro-gun perspective. And so I think that especially dealing with people of all walks of life is very important that we get the perspective of both the person behind the gun and in front of the gun. With that being the case, today is we have a very special guest. This is someone that I just met her today, you guys. I've never met her before. No, this is Mallori Lockett. She is not only a friend of mine or someone that I know, but she's also family. And so Mallori has agreed to be gracious enough to share her story with us. Before we get into that, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself, some details of who you are?
I'm Mallori Lockett, very happy and proud empty nester.
What is that? I don't know what that is.
My son is grown and out of the nest and has been for years and has not come back. Praise God. But I love him dearly. I am a realtor here in Chicagoland. I have been a realtor here in Chicago for a few years. I've been a real estate professional for the past 20 plus years. I'm an 80s trivia queen. That pretty much wraps me up in a nutshell.
80s trivia queen.
Right.
You know what? I was getting ready to
Happy
test you.
wife as well. Should say that.
Word. You know what? Since we talking about the fact that you're married, your husband, his name is Quincy.
Yeah,
right?
Quincy Lockett.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's I do believe he had his birthday is basically on the best day in the calendar year.
Yeah, April 16th.
April 16th.
Yes.
Yeah. That's like the best day.
That's your birthday.
That's my birthday.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So not only is her husband an Aries, a fellow Aries, which is, we all know, the best sign that there is, but he and I have the same birthday.
Imagine our joy.
You don't want to be in a room with us. You don't want to be in a room with us. We will, if you can't debate, you don't want to be in a room with us. But for that matter,
Bring your A game.
you don't want to debate her either, because I've seen her at work.
Bring your A+ game.
You best. Bring a change of clothes too, because we're going to be a while. But okay, so with that being said, let's get into some background. All right, so first question out the gate. Mallori, where did you grow up? And I'm sorry, where did you get your exposure, or what was your level of exposure to firearms, let's say, as a child? So before your teenage years, did you grow up in a household with guns? Did you grow up in a household where guns were not spoken of? Were they taboo? What was your level of exposure as a child with firearms?
My mom was a single unwed mother, working mom, trying to put food on the table and keep us both sane. She did not have time or the energy, or it probably wasn't even a thought of her regarding firearms. She was a lover, not a fighter. And it never occurred to me to want guns, or it was a non-issue in our lives. If anything, it would have been a negative. So it just wasn't. That was something that you saw on TV, even though I grew up in Chicago on the south side.
Okay, and that was going to be my next question too. Like, I couldn't remember if you actually did grow up in Chicago, because I know you spent some time on the East Coast. But okay, so you are a Chicago baby.
Born in Kalamazoo, raised here in Chicago. left Chicago for the DMV, DC, Maryland, Virginia, for those of you not familiar, area in the late 80s. Came back to Chicago, where we are now, in 2013. So I was there, 20 plus years easy.
Gotcha. Okay. So would you say that when you became a young adult, when you had a little bit of freedom, let's say post high school, do you feel that your perspective on firearms changed at all at that point, or was it pretty much the same?
If anything, I became very anti-gun. So
Okay.
I wasn't raised to be anti-gun. Guns just weren't an issue. When I was probably radicalized in high school. I was very much about, at that time, which is interesting because what's old is new again. We're talking a lot about nuclear wars and stuff like that right now, but back in the mid 80s when I was in school, the Cold War was still pretty much a thing, and I was very anti-nuclear war and actually just very nonviolent in general. So going into adulthood, living on the East Coast at that time, I lived in Maryland. And when I lived in Maryland, I've lived in DC, Maryland, and Virginia, just like some people live on the south side of Chicago, some people live on the north side of Chicago. People can do both. But anyway.
But you can't like the Cubs and the Sox. You cannot.
Yeah, that would be weird.
Yeah.
But in the late 80s, there was an handgun law, anti-handgun law in Maryland. And I
Really?
voted for that. I didn't want anyone to own handguns.
Interesting.
So, and that's just a handgun. We weren't even talking about
Rifles.
automatic. I don't even know the terminology. I know AK-47 and all that type of jazz, right? That wasn't even on my radar for wanting people to have. I didn't even want you to have a handgun.
Okay. That's interesting because a little bit, well, it was before the 80s, but Chicago actually did pass that same law here. And there were
How's that working out?
Well, it got debunked by the Supreme Court in 2013 when we got concealed carry. But for years, for decades, it was illegal for Chicago residents, not Illinois residents, but specifically Chicago residents to own handguns. So you could own what they classified as long guns. So you can own a shotgun,
Like a rifle or
you
something?
can own a rifle,
Okay.
but you could not own a handgun. And one of the talking points, or one of the strong points behind that bill was, according to Mayor Daley, was the gang violence in Chicago. And so they felt that not allowing people to be able to conceal a weapon, because handguns is the only ones you could really conceal, but not being able to allow people to conceal a weapon would lead to less shootings. We know that hindsight is 2020. Upon examination, that did absolutely nothing to staunch the violence in Chicago. But it is interesting that there was quite a few cities, actually, now that I think about it, that pushed that type of legislation. The interesting thing is there was also cities, let's call them red cities, that had the opposite type of legislation, and the numbers weren't very different. So in big cities that had crime, drugs, and gangs, they were just going to do what they were going to do. So yeah, the red states didn't win, the blue states didn't win. Excuse me, the red cities didn't win, the blue cities didn't win. But it's very interesting. So another question, do you think that being a young woman of color, and this is looking back, so I know you probably didn't think this at the time, but do you think that being a young woman of color had any impact, specifically that part? Do you think that that had any impact on your stance as it pertains to firearms?
A young woman of color. I don't think so. I think that it's just in me. I could have been black, brown, green, purple. I was going to be anti-gun.
Okay.
I think where in regards to being black, I never said terms like black on black crime, I think that is a horrible thing to say. It's crime on crime. Crime is opportunistic.
Agreed.
I don't think it has any basis in what ethnic group you belong to or color you belong to. It's just what there are other factors that come into play that have nothing to do with the color of your skin.
Gotcha.
So for me personally, I don't think me being a person of color made me anti-gun. I think guns made me anti-gun.
Okay, fair enough. So, you had a very bad experience.
Mm-hmm.
With that being the case, I will give you the floor and let you share with us what you will as it pertains to your experience surrounding a firearm.
Okay. First and foremost, I want to say that if you are experiencing domestic violence, if you think you may, or if you know someone who is, please get help. Seek help. Call someone that you trust. Take a chance and trust an organization or a kind person and seek help. There's help out there for you. That said, in 2005, I had been dating someone long distance for about a year. And he moved to where I was in Virginia. I was living in Virginia at the time. And we thought we were in love. And he moved in with me. My then 15-year-old son was visiting my mother here in the Chicagoland area. And I said, okay, we can try it while he's, away. And because I figured at that time I was 39, I knew at that time that I'd know within a very short period of time if this was real or not. And so within a couple of weeks, actually before that, like within the first week, I'm like, he's not too cool. There was no violence or anything like that. It just had a vibe. And within 3 weeks, I was like, yeah, this is not going to work. Still no violence, just a vibe. It was like a dark cloud had settled. And by the time I was like, yeah, this is not working for me, you need to go, he kept coming up with excuses for why he could not go. And so finally, around end of August or so, somewhere in that time frame, somewhere between August and September-ish, he finally moved out. I started seeing someone else, and I had been seeing that person for a few weeks, and on my birthday, which is November 3rd, he broke into my home. He hid. I had no idea that he was hiding. My then boyfriend named John and I came home. Again, I was celebrating my birthday, had been out with all of my friends, came home. My ex-boyfriend was waiting for me. He shot John. He shot me. He stabbed John so many times, the coroner stopped counting. He stabbed me at least 3 times. And John is no longer with us as a result of it. And the only reason why I am alive is because he thought I was dead. So it was the worst thing that's ever happened to me, to my family, to John and his family, obviously. And it's something that I live with every day.
Wow. So this isn't my first time hearing this story, but it's just as impactful as as it was the first time. So first, let me just reiterate that, happy you made it out of that.
Me too.
Otherwise, I wouldn't have gotten to know you. But I think you said something very important towards the beginning of your story. You stated that he wasn't violent, but there was a vibe. And I think that that's one of the things that so often we tend to look over.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, I have 2 daughters. And that's certainly one of the things that I teach my daughters, or I'm trying to teach my daughters, which is to learn how to read people's energy, read the vibe. You don't have to wait until they get violent, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even just from a dating standpoint, it's perfectly fine for you to say, this isn't giving me what I needed to give from a relationship standpoint. And as a young woman, you were comfortable enough to be like, all right, I'm over this.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, that brother couldn't accept, defeat. But I think that's important. I think people need to understand. One of the things that we teach in our firearms instruction courses is there's a segment called the color codes of awareness. And the most vulnerable color is white. And so we teach you to never be in white. White is the person that's walking down the street. They are immersed in their phone. They have headphones on. They're completely unaware of what's going on. And then the next color up is yellow. Yellow is where you are aware of everything. So you're paying attention to the car that has been around the block 3 times, and you're paying attention to the guy that keeps getting in your personal space. But what that does is it allows you to be able to react, right? And so if we're looking at this from a relationship standpoint, you were in yellow. You were aware of the energy of this person. You were assessing, his actions, and you were able, because you weren't in white, but you were in yellow, you were able to make a determination that this is not for me. That's critical, because we get caught off guard when we aren't paying attention to those things. And unfortunately, this situation did get violent. But one has to wonder, how worse could it have been had you not caught it when you caught it? If you had been in a deeper relationship with this dude, if he had more access to you, if you hadn't cut him off and those true colors started to come out, we can just imagine how sick that could have got, right? So that's just a lesson for you all, to be in yellow and everything. And as men, we typically don't have situations that don't suit us. But women are oftentimes shunned or made to feel like they have to suffer through things. We know traditionally the woman's role has been looked at as one of service to men, right? It wasn't about you being satisfied or women being romanticized. It was more so about you serving your husband. But I like the fact that you didn't approach it that way. You were like, yo, I need to get something out of this. I'm not getting nothing out of this. It's time to go. So kudos to you for that as well.
Well, can I add something?
Please.
I'm going to keep it real. So this is why I got that vibe. I got the vibe because my stepfather had been abusive to me. He reminded me of my stepfather. I got that vibe because I had been in relationships that had also been domestically violent for me. So, but I wish I hadn't had to go through that to see this vibe. And even with this vibe, what I left out, I gave you guys the abridged version. What I left out was that wasn't the first time he had broke into the home. The first time he did it, he had a key. So technically, I thought he had given me back the key, but he made spare keys. So in the middle of the night, about a week or 2 before he actually murdered John, he came over, unannounced, uninvited. And John and I were there. And this is where I was white, the color white, like you've just described. So John had a talk with him, and said that, I don't think, this is what John said. John told him that no woman was worth going to jail on. That's a direct quote. And after he left, John and I talked, and I felt, I don't want to call the police. He seems to have got it. John said, John agreed, and my ex was the nephew of good friends of mine. We, all traveled in the same social circle. I didn't want my friends to be upset because my ex had screwed up doing something so ridiculous like this. And we naively and tragically thought that this was a one-off. No one comes into your home unannounced, uninvited, and it's a one-off. Don't give people the benefit of the doubt for breaking the law. He was not invited. This is, or even real talk. I knew, because I experienced with my stepfather, I'd had these other relationships, I knew within a week this was not for me. My good friend was like, woman who also has a good heart, believes the best in everyone. She's like, are you sure? Maybe you should give it a couple more weeks. I did not trust myself. I did not want to rock the boat. And I said, you know what, I'll give it a couple more weeks. Who knows what would have happened if I had just stopped at that first week, instead of giving it 2 more weeks before I started saying, hey, you got to get out. Because it took me another month plus to actually get him out. Maybe if I had said to people, he reminds me of my stepfather. He reminds me of my ex, my other ex. The only thing I knew to do was to make sure that my son wasn't around him. And so for that period, we had joint custody, but I actually went to my son's father and I was like, I'm trying to get dude out. He's not, he's dragging his feet. I don't want our son around him. That act, I was yellow for my son. And I am sure that act is what saved my son's life.
Wow.
Because the day that he came over, my birthday, November 3rd, 2005, it was a Thursday. Like I said, we had joint custody. My son's father would have him at the beginning of the week. I would have him at the end of the week. So my son would have been there. And the way the bullets were shot, it went through my bedroom, through my master bathroom, or as a realtor, owner's bathroom. There are no masters here.
Right. New terminology.
Yes. 2002 now. Through my son's bathroom and through my son's bedroom wall.
Wow.
So the bullet went through everything to 3 different walls or so, 2 different walls, to end up in my son's bedroom.
Wow.
So, the mama bearing me knew to protect.
Yeah.
But I didn't know to protect myself. And I think it's I don't want to make it gender specific. I think parents are very good at protecting their children and not being mindful of their own self-protection. So all of you who are listening, if you have friends that are like my friend, and well-meaning, are you sure? It's okay to be wrong. It's okay to think that someone might be a killer and not want to be around them and be wrong about them. Let them be Jesus. Okay, it'll be revealed.
Yeah.
So
Great. Piggybacking off of something you said about how parents are, what's the thing that when you're on the airplane, when the flight attendant is explaining what happens in the case of an emergency, he says to put your airbag on first, right?
Exactly.
And I think that they have to tell us that, and they do that. They don't say before you put it on a child, but that's what they're really referring to, because they know that that's just instinctively how we are. We will be very gung-ho to protect our children, but sometimes we will drop the ball as it pertains to ourselves. That's a good point. Also, she made another good point. One of the things, a segment in our classes that we advocate for, in the concealed carry classes and the home defense classes, we advocate for using what's called hollow point bullets. One of the biggest selling points in hollow points is that they do not do what you described his bullets did. So that tells me, without knowing all the details, it tells me that he was shooting what we call full metal jackets. We call those target ammo. Those are the bullets that will go through 18 walls. Hollow points will stop in a body. It'll definitely stop in a wall. But when it comes to I'm an advocate of safe, responsible gun ownership. That tells me already that guy was not. You weren't even shooting. You weren't even in possession of the correct type of defense ammo, right? So it gives us a little bit of insight into what he was planning. He was not thinking logically at all. Again, that situation is very heavy. And again, I also want to just thank you again for sharing it with us.
Thank you for allowing me.
No doubt. Question.
Yes.
Looking back on the situation, is there anything you would have done differently if you could? Now, we know that, of course, you wouldn't even entertain this clown. But in the moment of on your birthday, do you think that there is anything, mind you, this is as if you couldn't change his behaviors. Do you think that there's anything that you could have done differently? Do you think that there was like a red flag or there's a shoestring right there? Just anything that you possibly looked over that may have changed the outcome of the situation?
So this whole situation happened within like 10 to 15 minutes at the most. So when we realized that he was in the house, I ran out. John ran behind me. My ex, I'm deliberately not naming him because he does not deserve to be named.
Agreed.
Not by me.
Agreed.
Y'all can Google. And he chased us out of the home. And I lived in a townhome community. So, there are a bunch of townhomes, and then you have the shared parking lot. And again, I'm a certified yoga instructor. So I am not thinking, I want everyone to be peaceful. So I'm actually thinking about everyone but myself. And he chased us with the gun. We end up around, not too far away from my home. And I'm thinking, if he shoots it and he misses us but shoots another person, an innocent person, I'm not going to be able to live with myself. And he's telling us to get back in the house, and I'm thinking he's going to shoot and not confront it at all. I've never been in this situation before. So we go back in the home. One, I should not have gone back in because it's not like he was experienced. Not that I knew. He was from the South. I had an assumption that he was familiar with firearms. But it's what I know now. It's harder to shoot something outside than in an enclosed space. So that would be, and if you see me smiling, it's gallows humor. I gotta smile sometimes to keep from crying. So we went back into the home. He hit me and John with the gun. When he hit me with the gun, I fell to my knees because, you don't get hit with guns every day. I still can't fully open. I have braces now. That's why I can't really fully open my mouth now. But even before the braces, it's very hard for me to...
He was sitting on the stairs. He put the gun on the stair beneath him, and he made John sit in the dining room table.
Right, which was kind of across the stairs.
Okay.
And I'm on the floor. I'm from Chicago, so as sweet as I am and as peace-loving as I am, I'm still a Chicagoan. I saw the stairs. I saw the gun on the stairs, and him sitting above the stairs, and I started thinking. And I'm thinking, if I can get to the gun, I can swipe it toward John. John can grab the gun. He can hold it on him, not shoot him, because I'm still in peace mode.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to call 911, and this is going to be over. The reason why I thought I could slide the gun to John is because John was from rural Indiana, and I made the assumption that he knew how to handle a gun. I did not know how to handle a gun. And these are the things that go through your mind like in seconds, because you have to assess the situation within seconds. I'm thinking, if I got to the gun, could I get the gun, hold it, fire it, having never fired a firearm? I'm thinking about how you have to, I'm thinking you gotta, like, I don't know, do something to a gun before you shoot it.
Hammer,
right, cock the hammer. I'm like, I don't even know how to do that, blah, blah, blah. But John will know how to do it. So I'm on my knees, and this is, by then I had realized that, he's on some sort of crazy power trip. And what he wants from me is some sort of subservience, I guess. Is that a word? Subservience? You know what I mean. Anyway, so I'm crawling on the ground, on the floor, and I'm saying, please don't do this. You have a son. He had a daughter. I have a son. I'm so sorry. Don't do this. We can work this out. And he's so mesmerized by me begging, he doesn't realize that I'm getting closer and closer and closer. I got close enough to swat the gun toward John. I'm taking off, going upstairs to call 911. The next thing I hear are gunshots, and then he comes upstairs to shoot me. The first bullet or whatever grazed my temple. The second one, unbeknownst to me, shot me, but lodged in my body. And but I'm still conscious at this time. He then goes downstairs, and I know now that he was downstairs stabbing John. When I heard his feet back on the stairs, I played dead. I laid down in the bedroom and played dead. And he thought I was dead, but he still stabbed me anyway. I'm so busy playing dead that I'm not reacting, because when you're in this situation, your life depends on it. So you're doing what you think you need to do.
Wow.
He heard the sirens, and he ran out. He ransacked the room first. I could hear him like throwing things around. And he ran out. And one of the reasons why he thought that I was dead was my hair was a lot longer then, and I had put my hair right before he came up the stairs, like over my face. So that helped me. Literally, I was covering myself. And so, fortunately for all of us, he was caught, and he's now doing life in prison. So if I had if I could do it all over again, and when you're in these situations, you play it over, like for days, I would just play it over and over in my head, what I could do different. And, I had, I still have survivor's guilt, but it's much better now. I understand now, at the end of the day, people are not supposed to commit murder, right?
Right.
So if I had it to do all over again, I would have grabbed that gun and I would have shot him. I would have shot him so many times. He would be dead again and again and again.
Yeah. As the old folks in Mississippi say, would have shot the shit out of him.
Yes.
Yeah, I think he would have certainly deserved that. Again, I remember you sharing that detail with me when you shared the story with me previously. And I think that was a very powerful piece of the story. And there's some lessons to be learned from that as well. You said that you assumed that John, may he rest in peace, you assumed that he knew how to operate a firearm because of...
He said he had gone hunting as a child.
Yeah. One of the things that we teach in our self-defense classes is what happens during a violent encounter. And honestly speaking, your encounter goes beyond what we teach. We teach what happens when you're threatened. You actually went the whole nine up until having to perform after being wounded, right? So this actually goes beyond that. But one of the things that we teach is how when you're in a violent encounter, 9 times out of 10 you're going to get caught off guard. But you lose certain things like your dexterity in your hands, you get foggy brain. Scientists say that you get tunnel vision, you get diminished hearing.
Yes.
All of these things are playing a role, which is why, going back to the class, we teach, as it pertains to shooting, for example, we teach you how to properly shoot, and we encourage you to practice. And the point of that practice is to, in layman's terms, build muscle memory. Because we know that your higher brain, for the most part, checks out when you're in a violent encounter. And so what you will have to rely on is whatever is in your muscle memory. So I say that to say it's very well that John did have knowledge of how to use the firearm, but because he's dealing with what we can agree upon is not something humans should be dealing with, his higher brain could have just checked out. And maybe he wasn't moving as quickly. And it's unfortunate because the unnamed clown, well, he had an advantage, right? Because he planned this. So his dexterity was just fine. His brain, we can argue that it was fine, but clearly it wasn't fine. But as far as the part that plans and executes, he wasn't suffering from the same things that you all were, because he had been laying in wait, right? He had planned this stuff. But that's I think that's key, because that's a big portion in our concealed carry and home defense lesson, talking about just how your higher brain checks out. And you, in part of your story, you explain exactly how that happened. But another thing is, you said the assumption part, right? So I'm a person that truly believes, now in your situation you didn't have any other choice, but listening to your story, one of the things that we can take away from that is, instead of assuming the person has the skill set to use his firearm, it's a good time for us to make sure that we can.
Yes.
So one thing that you said before to me, specifically relating to this part of your story, is that your perspective somewhat changed as it pertains to firearms. And I don't remember how you said it, but you worded it in a way, I think you said learning the basic skills and how to use a firearm is something that you would recommend. You related it to like learning to change a tire,
yeah.
in a sense.
We and I am going to make this gender specific, because women typically are not encouraged to learn or do things that were men things.
Guy stuff.
Yeah. Yes, exactly, guy stuff. We're not, to do things around the home, like change the air filter or, install something or change tires or learn how to fire a gun, things of that nature. These are practical. Whether or not you ever have to use those skills, there's still practical things to know. And conversely, I guess to be gender neutral, men can learn to bake a cake and fire a gun. So there is a set of life skills that one would benefit to learn. And I think learning to operate a gun is one of them. To put it in real terms now, whether or not whatever side you're on of the current Ukrainian situation, there are civilians who are learning to arm themselves. I mean, people like you and me learning to arm themselves because they're ready to defend their property and their country.
Great point.
So you don't know. As bizarre as that sounds, it's not really, I'm sure the Ukrainians didn't think that, it would come to this either.
Right.
So not trying to scare anyone or anything like that, but that's a real life situation where it might be beneficial for you to know how to operate a firearm. It might be, I think also that whether or not you ever use it, the confidence that you would have and not when you master anything, if you knew how to shoot a bow and arrow, anything that you can do competently begets confidence. So
I like how you put that, and that is an excellent example with the whole Ukrainian situation, because there are men and women that a month ago was accountants and mechanics are now armed by the Ukrainian military and actively defending their country. They would have never thought that. But I love how you put that, though, as far as making it just a basic life skill that we should all have. I love baking cakes, for the record. I make a mean caramel cake from scratch. Don't use no box, nothing. But
would this be a good time for me to say that Quincy makes great gumbo, and that's why he's my husband, not your husband.
He makes an awesome turkey gravy too. Listen, yeah, that's a good guy. I'm definitely a fan of Quincy, or as you dubbed him, the Quincy.
Yeah,
oh, the Q is the Q now?
No, we're gonna stick with the Quincy.
The Quincy.
Yes.
That sounds like an expensive hotel downtown.
So, yeah. He
But
is round.
I can't do that. That's a man law violation. But I do appreciate that, though. And at the end of the day, obviously I own a firearms instruction company, so I'm pro gun. However, I'm very much aware of the different perspectives, right? And whatever category you put it in, at the very least, whether you want to own one gun, no guns, 100 guns, you think that you should at least know how to operate one. I guess it's safe to say that it's possible that had you had firearms training, you wouldn't have even been thinking to get the gun and give it to John. You would have been able to use that yourself.
If I had firearms training, about a month or so before I finally got him out, he mentioned that he had a gun. And I told my friends, and they were like, what? And I was like, yeah, that's wild. But I did not think he would use it against me. Or I still didn't think I was in enough danger. I could only think about my son does not need to be around him. I think that if I had firearms training, with firearms training, you discuss scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
And you discuss topics like domestic violence.
Mm-hmm.
You discuss things like stranger violence. That's why, I'm a realtor, and it's good for us to have knowledge as well, whether or not we choose to carry a gun or not. But self-defense and knowing how to use a gun properly is, at this point, pretty essential, I think.
Mm.
In my business. We're showing homes. We are meeting people that we've never met before. We're holding open houses, etc. We're going, oftentimes, if it's new construction or if it's a rural area or a vacant lot way out somewhere, you're going to be more or less by yourself. There are very practical reasons why to use or to know how to use a gun, or to know self-defense, and beyond a doubt, whether or not you use a gun or not, to know some form of self-defense.
Great. Shameless plug, I actually have it's called the Hayes Firearms Academy Real Estate Professionals Concealed Carry course.
Really?
I do.
Okay.
I just rolled it out last week. But it's a concealed
Sign
carry.
up. Tell them Al sent you.
Please do. But it's catered specifically to agents, brokers, all of you all in that area. For that very reason, as you know, I know a lot of people in real estate. Also have a trucker specific one as well. I've been in trucking for 17 years. But great information, Mallori. Again, I'm so glad that you made it. Definitely hate to hear about how the situation played out, but I do believe that people can learn from your situation, and you never know just how far your help will go. We don't know how many people is going to see this video. We don't know what you said will actually click for them, that maybe someone has been trying to say 20 times. So we thank you again. Thank you for sharing with us. Again, we're happy that I have Auntie Mallori. I'm glad that your perspective has, say, changed, but it's been tweaked a little bit because of your life experience.
Yeah, I think my perspective has been more than tweaked. I went from not believing that anyone should own a gun to firmly understanding the benefit of learning, if for no other reason, how to operate a handgun or whatever firearm of your choice for self-protection. I do believe that you are. It's why I'm so passionate about being a realtor. Sanctuary is a human right for me. You should be safe in your home. You should be safe from domestic violence. You should be safe from child abuse. You should be safe from anything that the outside world can bring to you to harm you. And so if you have an environment, if you're able to afford a home, if you're not, let's talk.
Word.
Let's get you there.
Word.
But you should be able to close your door, turn your key, or turn your lock, and you are happy. And if that means that you own a gun in order to secure your sanctuary, then so be it. Because it's illegal. You have a right to self-defend. You have a right to peaceful enjoyment of your home. And so I feel strongly that people have the right to defend themselves.
No doubt. Basically, I don't know if you know it or not, but everything you just basically said, plus a few others that you didn't mention, is almost by definition what Illinois classifies as forcible felonies. Mm-hmm. Everything you just stated that we should be entitled to enjoy, the state of Illinois agrees. And because it's a forcible felony, Illinois justifies the use of lethal force in defending those things. So whether it be kidnapping, raping, all of that is what Illinois, the state of Illinois, allows you to use a firearm or a knife or whatever kind of lethal force to protect. So it's good to know that you're on the same side as the law.
Yes.
Yeah. So again,
ethically, I have to be as a realtor
You do?
as well.
You do?
My license could be taken if I am not
On the side of
on
the
the same side of the law.
I'm a trucker. You know, we specialize in breaking the law. Just playing. I do not go over my hours, dear DOT. But again, thank you, Mallory. Hopefully, we want to thank you guys for watching. Hopefully, Mallory was able to inspire someone and help someone. Also, I do work with an organization that caters to women that's coming from domestic violence situations. If there is a situation where you are in a domestic violence situation, seek help, like Mallory has already encouraged. But we do have a program that we work with them. We provide safe self-defense training, concealed carry, expedited concealed carry services at no charge to the victim. So if you need to reach out, you definitely can find me on social media. Outside of that, did you have any other parting words?
Yes. I have a happily ever after in a lot of ways. I moved on with my life. I moved from the DC metro area. I moved back to Chicago, became a realtor, met someone wonderful, and lived happily ever after with him. I would not have been able to do that had I not lived. So if you are in a domestic violence situation and you are wondering what your life could be like if you got out of it, this is what your life could be like. You could have David, well, maybe not this David, maybe another David, as a wonderful nephew-in-law. And I think that you are worth it. You're worth looking at your happily ever after down the road. You're worth imagining that and manifesting that beyond whatever relationship you're in. That person is not worth it. Turn that person in. Seek help. Immediately. Yesterday.
Trust those vibes. And some of us are in situations that are getting way more than vibes, so we know that it's not even a question if it's time to go. If it's time to go, it's time to go. Your life is worth way more than whatever temporary satisfaction you're getting from staying in that situation, or your desire to protect that person's image. Sometimes we stay in those situations because we don't want other people to view.
You know, there is no shame in leaving something that does not serve you. And there's just no shame in it. What you'll find, quite honestly, is that others have been in that same situation and they were silent, and then you step forward and step out and step beyond what you're in now, and then they will get the courage to step out as well, or they will let you know how much you inspired them.
Word. Well, there you have it, people. Again, this was the first segment of The Other Side of the Gun. Thank you guys again for watching. And of course, you can find Mallory online on social media. Could you tell them where they can find you?
IG, LinkedIn, everyone's favorite, Meta, Facebook, whatever they're calling themselves right now. Mallori Lockett, Mallori Lockett. Find me. And if you're looking to purchase a home so that you can have sanctuary, I'm the person.
Word. And of course, I am online, www.hayesfirearmsacademy.com. YouTube is Hayes Firearms Academy LLC, and Instagram and Facebook is at Hayes Firearms Academy. Until next time, love you guys. Take care. Stay deadly. And remember, as far as situational awareness goes, yellow. You never want to be in color white.
Yellow.
As the pillow says. Peace.